So, of course, the $64,000 question is, first off, how did you translate what the egghead quantum physics said? I mean, how would you're on a bus somewhere and someone says, so Lynn, I mean, quantum physics, I mean, what's that mean to me? How do you answer what that means to them?
Well, what it means to them is, first of all, we're all connected. I mean, I think the most fundamental thing is we're all connected by an energy field. We swim in a sea of light, basically, which is the zero-point field. And I say, first of all, you get away from the whole idea of separateness, because separateness is the biggest problem in the world now. I mean, separateness causes all the wars in the world. It causes the mine is bigger than yours mentality. I have to have more. I don't have enough. I have to grab this for myself type of idea. So you have to rethink your life in terms of being part of a bigger whole. And secondly, you have to also understand that your intention is going to affect your world, and that what you think, your thoughts, your very thoughts, affect everything that's going on in your life. And so you have to think wisely.
Why does quantum physics say that? And give me a light. Well, quantum physics says that because.
Okay, I think there's two really important things here that a lot of people touch on. I'll say that again because you may do it again independently. There's two really important elements here. There's the Copenhagen interpretation basically means that reality is unset jello. That's the way I like to put it. There's this just big indeterminate sledge out there that's our potential life, and that we, by our very act of involvement, our act of noticing, our observation, we get that jello to set. So we're intrinsic to the whole process of reality. Say that again. We're intrinsic to the whole process of reality. Our involvement creates that reality. Now, the second thing that's really important is the whole idea of non-locality, the idea of action at a distance, which is, I call it till death do us part. And it means if you've got two electrons and you move one to Tokyo and one to San Francisco, they both know about each other through time and space. And if one breaks his leg, if he's skiing in Vail, the other one breaks his leg too, even if he's sipping a latte in Colorado. So there's this constant action, and we're finding non-locality everywhere, in our bodies, in space, from stars, in regions of the zero-point field. Everything is connected. And so we have this involvement in everything. We are our world. There's no out there. There's no place where we end and everything else begins. We're all connected. And we also have this involvement in creating our reality.
So when you say that we're all connected and we don't really end, we're all, what is the scientific basis for that? Specifically, what? Because that sounds like a mystic from the enlightened spheres of the Brahmaloka speaking. I mean, but now you're saying it in scientific. What's the scientific?
Okay, this is going to take a long time to try to answer. There are, first of all, there's demonstrations from the work of Fritz Albert Popp that we are beings of light, that we are sending out and receiving small photons, photons, small particles of light. We're sending and receiving photons all the time. Those are small particles of light. And that we're beaming all the time. New research is demonstrating that this is coming out of our very DNA, that this is controlling all the processes of the body, but it's also sending and receiving outside of ourselves. We also know that our communication between ourselves occurs in frequencies. This is other work that French scientists did, demonstrating that our cells talk to each other not simply through chemicals, but on a lower nether region through frequency. We also know that there is this ground state energy called the zero-point field, which is many scientists believe, now people have lots of different names for it, the vacuum, the strict constructionists call it the vacuum, the loose constructionists call it the zero-point field. And I like the zero-point field because it speaks to us. It's a good metaphor, and it's an easier one to digest, I think, than many of the other kinds of metaphors for this lower ground state energy. But it's a very important aspect of energy because governments like, organizations like NASA, British Aerospace, are all trying to tap into this incredible, unimaginably large energy sea. And they feel if they can tap this, we can travel to different galaxies. So they understand that in empty space, there is this unbelievable energy. But we are doing a little energy dance all the time, not only with the photons that we're sending and receiving, but we, our bodies are made up of the same stuff as everything else, as this chair, as the tables, as everything that we look at. We all derive down to a set of subatomic particles. And particles aren't just little billiard balls that swirl around a nuclei like we're taught in physics. They're little packets of vibrating energy, and they're constantly passing energy back and forth like a little medicine ball. So what's going on is a little tango between our electrons and the electrons of the zero-point field all the time. So we're sending and receiving, we're getting information back and forth. And remember, waves are units of information. They're constantly when they interfere, they're constantly absorbing more information. Many scientists have come up with information like with magnetic resonance imaging, demonstrating that these waves have they're little holograms of information that can be regenerated, that have a history of information about the structures they come from. So we're talking about a sea of not only unfathomably large energy, but a memory bank of everything that ever was, just out there in empty space.
The first question, some sort of fairly concise thing about the question about, okay, you said we're all connected, but how does that change my experience when I go into a grocery store? I mean, how does that worm its way in so it's something more than just an intellectual concept?
I think, first of all, it's studying what other living things do and understanding that you're part of this giant ecosystem. So maybe there's some timings that are good times to do things and bad times to do things. We know now we're affected by the planets. We watch animals. And animals are hugely affected in their intention and their ESP abilities by certain things. I mean, pigeons can't navigate their way home when there's a geomagnetic storm. So maybe we look at ourselves as part of a larger thing. We also look at other cultures where you realize that there is this reciprocity thing. I mean, when we go into a grocery store, you try to get one over on someone. If they make a mistake on the price, you laugh about it, and you basically take the thing without paying what you're supposed to pay for it. Well, maybe you look at things in a larger way of saying, well, no, the universe has a reciprocity here. In other cultures, if you paid too much or too little for something, the seller would give you something more. If you paid too much, they'd give you another thing as well. If you paid too little, they might cut a piece of it off because they believe that there's this sense of equality there. When you take, it would affect our raping of the planet, which is what we're doing now. If you think that you're part of something bigger and this is all you're not going to destroy the ozone layer. You're not going to destroy the forests. You're not going to think all the time in your businesses about how you always have to make a profit. Maybe we have enough. Maybe we just have to work out how to sustain what we have instead of constantly having growth. With children, you're not going to just tell them, get out there and win on the football team. You're going to teach a more cooperative way of working with other children, that you work in you sit in a circle. You don't have to be called upon. You don't have to be humiliated in education, you know, in your school. Maybe you just quietly go out and learn by observing, as native cultures do. And when the child knows it, the child comes back and everybody applauds the fact that he has information. You are going to listen to all your intuitive things and not listen to just what the radio says. If you intuitively don't think it's going to rain, don't bring your umbrella. You know, listen to your intuition, not the weather report. So you're going to access other forms of information rather than the ones that you see with your five senses and the ones that you're told.